With New World Aeternum officially on the chopping block, what are the chances that something similar will soon happen in ESO? Hey everyone, it's Spopes. I'm going to cover what happened with New World, worrying signs about ESO, but also how the games are different and why I don't actually expect anything similar to happen to ESO. MMOs overall are in a worrying state right now, but I believe ESO is reasonably future-proofed, and in this video, you'll find out why I think that. If you don't know, almost everyone was shocked yesterday when New World Aeternum was canceled. There will be no future content updates. The most recent season will be the last season. And I just want to address the copium in the room. Nobody is going to buy this IP. It would be a terrible investment. You'd have to rehire basically the entire studio. Any company that actually is making an MMO or wants to make an MMO will just start from scratch. It's a lot easier. They'd have to invest in fixing all the bugs. There's been a lot of copium in the chat recently, and it's just not at all possible that this is going to get bought. I mean, maybe I'll get proven wrong, but very, very unlikely. This cancellation comes hot on the heels of the release of the very popular Nighthaven expansion, which was free, and they also gave the first DLC for free to all players. The fact that the game was canceled right at this peak has led many to wonder if this wasn't a bait and switch maneuver, where Amazon knew this was coming down the pipe, but they tried to push people into buying the game anyway to fuel some last-minute sales. Personally, I think that is actually very likely, and if I influenced any of you to buy this game, I have to apologize. I could have read the tea leaves more carefully. I could have somehow figured out this was coming down the pipe, but personally, I was just looking for something to play other than ESO, thought this game looked good, and thought I'd try it. But now I'm one of the many people flooding the comments and the world chat in New World saying, I just bought this game, help, this is ridiculous. What happened with New World is a classic example of corporate greed. New World was just financially unsustainable, and cutting it consisted of a tiny drop in the bucket compared to Amazon's overall revenue. New World cost over $200 million to develop, was costing probably close to $100 million a year to keep going, and those costs just weren't justified by the $60 cost of the game, the lack of a subscription model, and the optional store items and season pass content that not all players bought. Amazon is also just getting out of developing AAA games in general, which you have to wonder why they ever dipped their toes in that in the first place. I mean, this is an online bookstore company that eventually moved on to be like the online Walmart. Why they thought they could make games in the first place is very confusing. They're going to focus on AI-generated games and casual games with such absolute banger hits as Courtroom Chaos starring Snoop Dogg. Yeah, that's right, guys. They canceled New World to make a Snoop Dogg game. So New World is over. That sucks. They're going to keep the servers open through 2026 at least, but then it's sayonara. We are also seeing some worrying signs for ESO. The new Zone of Solstice has been met with considerable disapproval. The ongoing Battle for the Writhing Wall event has been met with lackluster enthusiasm, with many considering the content to be recycled. I've personally covered this a lot on this channel. ESO is definitely currently in a slump. MMO players in general dislike ESO's combat system, and the recent implementation of subclassing has been controversial. And like much of the gaming world, ESO has been through some major shakeups recently, with the studio head Matt Fuhrer departing, being replaced by Joe Burba. The studio's in-progress MMO Blackbird was also canceled. On the face of it, these can seem to be worrying signs for ESO, and given the fact that I just picked up New World only for it to be canceled 2 weeks later, you might not want to listen to me on any subject at all. But keeping my perspective as unbiased as possible, I don't think the same fate is going to happen to ESO anytime in the near future, and I have specific reasons for this. First of all, ESO is a predictable earner. Reports vary, but it makes around $15 million a month, which equates to around $200 million per year. This is mainly due to the subscription model in ESO, which is optional, but generates a lot of revenue. Also, the game shop is much more robust than the shop that existed and actually still exists in New World, leading to not only higher revenue over time, but predictable revenue. Players feel that they're locked into the subscription model, which is kind of true and kind of not, but the point is they will keep paying for it year after year for the privilege of playing ESO without any limits, which is something that Xbox and Microsoft can rely on. ESO's ongoing performance isn't anything amazing, but it's predictable. The game gets around 10 to 15,000 players on Steam per day, possibly upward of 30K overall when you consider consoles. New World Aeternum, on the other hand, had an absolutely crazy launch, but it never recovered those numbers. Player counts fluctuate based on when content is released, with averages recently going down to just 3K concurrent players on Steam. And keep in mind, these players are not paying for a monthly sub. They might not even be picking up the season pass. These might be people who just bought the game back in 2021 and haven't dropped a single cent since. Another difference between New World and ESO is that the publisher, Microsoft, is not moving away from AAA gaming. They may be reducing the number of AAA games they publish, but this is still the studio behind Call of Duty, everything coming out of Blizzard. They've invested heavily in AAA gaming, while Amazon, by contrast, its main AAA game was New World, which was fraught with issues from the very beginning. Also, while some lament the cancellation of Blackbird, the fact remains that this allocates more resources to ESO. Resources that were caught up in Blackbird can now be reallocated back to the Elder Scrolls Online. So without trying to predict the future, those are just some of the objective reasons that ESO is in a very different place than New World. It generates sustainable revenue. It comes from a parent company that is overall much more focused on gaming, and a project that was sucking a lot of resources away from ESO is now over, at least potentially reallocating those resources back to ESO. Overall, what is the future of ESO? Is it slowly dying? Will it stay the same, or is it on the verge of a renaissance? Some people say that ESO is too old to really succeed in the long term. However, when RuneScape relaunched as OSRS in 2013, it rapidly became one of the most popular games in the world. Right now, over 150,000 people are playing OSRS, and this is a 20-plus-year-old game. Millions of people per month, including me, keep coming back to OSRS for its nostalgic vibes, engaging gameplay, and continual development, which is still going strong even in 2025. They're releasing new features all the time. OSRS is an example of a rare long-term success story in the MMO market. Even when people were leaving World of Warcraft in droves, they came to OSRS. OSRS provides a roadmap for what ESO could do to make itself future-proofed. OSRS has so much enduring potential, actually, that I'm thinking of picking it back up as a source of content on this channel. Keep an eye out for news updates regarding that in the future. There are actually quite a few similarities between ESO and OSRS. At this point, ESO is dated enough to appear vintage, and that benefit will actually only get stronger over time. Age actually works to the advantage of ESO in many ways. The older that OSRS gets, for instance, the less you hear complaints about combat. The more things are allowed to just slide, they're explained away by the fact that it's an old game. Also, OSRS was pretty much dead before its revival in 2013, but over the last 5 years, player counts have spiked. Estimates suggest that over the last 10 years, OSRS has increased by 774% in terms of player count, which is absolutely incredible. There are some differences here, of course, with OSRS being mobile-friendly as well, but this just goes to show that a game can be old and still be viable. Also, we really have no idea what the new team at ESO is capable of, what ZOS is now capable of with all the resources reallocated from Blackbird. Everything we see here, both Western and Eastern Solstice, the Writhing Wall event, this was all put into place by the previous team. It may be a long shot, but there's definitely a possibility of ESO going through an OSRS-like renaissance, where the game improves dramatically with these new changes, causing players to flock back to it. This is made even more likely by the somewhat dismal MMO landscape currently available. Aside from ESO, you have Guild Wars 2, which gets old pretty fast. The same goes for Final Fantasy XIV. There's also Black Desert Online, but in terms of new MMOs coming out, they're generally not going very well. We saw what happened with New World, for instance, and then also Throne and Liberty has cratered. People have some hope for games like Ashes of Creation, even Chrono Odyssey, but these up-and-coming MMOs have lots of problems, and there are plenty of new MMOs that have just kind of been in development for over a decade that really probably aren't going to amount to anything. This has led many creators to question whether MMOs overall are dying, whether the genre itself is just slowly disappearing. But on the flip side, the more that competition with ESO disappears, the better this game will see in comparison. That's the main reason people keep going back to OSRS. Not necessarily because OSRS is so great, but because even though it's more than 20 years old, it still compares much more favorably to most modern MMOs in the market. So as an ESO player and content creator, I definitely have a vested interest in the future of the game. I have plenty of reasons to cope here and think that it's just going to get better because I want it to. But I've done my best in this video to remain as unbiased as possible. New World has opened my eyes to the fact that games can just suddenly close down. And I'm not saying that won't happen with ESO. I don't trust this promise that ESO will last 30 plus years as far as I can throw it. But at the same time, there are some legitimate reasons to hope that ESO will continue to thrive and may even undergo a renaissance, similar to what happened to OSRS in 2013. That game was already more than 10 years old, but since it was relaunched as OSRS, its player counts have spiked almost 8 times what they were before. And that's sustainable. That's sustainable revenue for Jagex. And the fact that ESO is a subscription MMO is actually kind of working to its advantage here. In the end, the next year of content will be really telling for the future of ESO. If the new development team is able to turn it around, produce some actually meaningful updates, make the game substantially better in some ways, that may future-proof it for the next 10 or even 20 years. If we keep seeing content updates like Solstice and the Writhing Wall, however, this may spell the beginning of the end for ESO. But at the same time, competition within the market is slimming, providing people with fewer options, making ESO look better and better every single day as MMOs continue to shut down and as new MMOs fail to impress, and as the genre itself is slimming down and is on the verge of dying. Within a few years' time, ESO and OSRS may be hailed as the last few remaining good MMOs in the market. We are truly at a make it or break it moment within the history of ESO. I hope you guys appreciate my take. Let me know if I was biased in any way. Let me know what you think is going to happen in the future of ESO in the comments, also in the future of MMOs in general. And yes, as was recently mentioned on Reddit, I am an overtly Christian ESO creator, so let's finish things off with a prayer. Lord, I thank you for ESO. I thank you for MMOs in general and all the people who work so hard to develop them. I pray for all of the content creators and the developers at New World who are going through trials right now. Also for the players of that game who are looking for something new. I ask that you make ESO an even better game going forward, that you guide it through an OSRS style renaissance, that you provide it as a bastion for MMO refugees to go to for years to come as the overall MMO landscape continues to look pretty dismal. And I thank you for my channel. I give all glory to you, Lord. I ask that you continue to help it grow and bring new people to it. That as you make ESO a bastion for MMO players, you also make my channel a bastion for people seeking to learn about that game and MMOs in general. Lord, in your mercy, hear our prayer. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hype the video if you're on mobile. And when you do subscribe, remember to turn on notifications because I'll be back soon with new content.